Hey, folks, welcome to another episode of Cutter One. I'm your host, Jay Just Jay, your resident culture warrior, your resident troublemaker. I hope you're all doing well on this Wednesday. It is hump day, it is the middle of the week, and hopefully things will just get easier and smoother for everyone, and we will cruise on into the weekend, and it'll be a good time, and much fun will be had by all. All right, folks. All right, so this one's a little bit different. It's not an article necessarily criticizing something or anything like that. It's an article I wanted to share. As you know, I know some of you guys out there who watch this are writers or interested in writing. I myself, as some of you know, am involved in the current publication of a book by Mrs. J. Just J, and it's the one actually you see right below here. That's currently the tentative cover that we have for it. It's a series of books called The Knights of Temuin, and it is the Crimson Born trilogy. Is currently what's being worked on. So as a writer and stuff, I wanted to share this one with you because it's kind of cool and kind of it's I think it mentions something a lot of us know. But it doesn't get as much attention as it should, and that is the lessons all writers can learn from the amazing J.R.R. Tolkien. And this is by Sam H. Arnold, and this is from the folks over at Medium.com. And it says, Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit were masterpieces of literature and writer perseverance. On a dreary day, a professor was sitting at his desk when a fateful event occurred. As he marked examination papers, he noticed that a student had left a page blank. For some inexplicable reason, he jotted down a sentence. In a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit. The professor was J.R.R. Tolkien, and unknown to him at the time, he had just written a line that would start world building the likes of which had never been seen before. Bilbo Baggins had started to exist in his mind. The Hobbit. Published in 1937, The Hobbit was a huge success. Many readers had never been transported to another world as they were with Tolkien's writing. Tolkien knew that he needed to capitalize on this success, so when the chairman of the publishing house asked him if other stories were set in the same place, he wrote The Silmarillion. The answer he received was that they did not want this new novel. They wanted a sequel to The Hobbit. Tolkien started writing Lord of the Rings. And that's true. That is true. The Lord of the Rings, the trilogy immediately captured the public's eye. It was adapted to radio the following year and has since gone on to sell well over 150 million copies. Later, The Lord of the Rings became one of history's all-time highest-grossing and critically acclaimed film series. But writing the books was not a quick endeavor. Instead, it took Tolkien 12 years to plan and write the epic novels. As a result, it was not published until 1954. The book contained not just many characters, but languages, geographies, and histories. All of these had to be painstakingly created. It started with a map, although I've heard some questions about this. Tolkien, like myself, believed that all good books should start with a map. The map was the first thing that he drew for the books. As the story progressed, he was constantly redesigning and altering his maps. He even went as far as meticulously planning how long characters would take to move from one area to another using his map as a guide. It was this level of detail that made the trilogy so successful. To fit his evolving storylines, Tolkien placed new maps over old ones throughout his writing. Before he even started to write The Lord of the Rings, he had planned and drawn Middle-earth. Tolkien the prankster. Tolkien never saw himself as creating a story from scratch. Instead, he let the story gradually unfold on its own. The characters led him. Excuse me. Even though his story grew longer and more complex than expected when he put everything together into a finished product. Even though his story grew longer and more complex than expected, he put everything together into a finished product. This is more than can be said for George R.R. Martin, who has lost control of his story, a story of fire and ice. It's a song of fire and ice, but I get what you're saying. It's easy to get overwhelmed and drained when we think about all the steps to take to a destination. These feelings can make it hard to make any progress. We focus so profoundly on the end result that we forget where to start. And this is a quote from Tolkien. It says, I have long ceased to invent. I wait till I seem to know what really happened, or till it writes itself. J.R.R. Tolkien. Tolkien's legacy. It is a constant mystery to me as a fan of Tolkien's work why the four were not released as a series. I presume trilogies are more attractive to readers. Tolkien shows when writing fiction, it doesn't matter if you don't know exactly where your journey will lead you. So instead of fixating on every detail, work on the things within your reach. Lay the groundwork first. Draw a map and write down an interesting conversation that comes into your head. All these can be the first step to a complete novel. It is easy to become overwhelmed when writing a piece of fiction, but if we keep taking the next step towards the finished product, we will eventually get there. The trick is to focus on the next step rather than the finished story. The trilogy is considered one of the most remarkable series of the 20th century and a favorite of many readers. Tolkien's story shows us that sometimes it takes years to produce a piece of work worth publishing. I don't know, having a hard time tonight. Unfortunately, many of Tolkien's other work was published after his death. Nevertheless, he has left a legacy for readers and writers to study for years. And this was originally published on February 13th. So, yeah, I mean, that is, you cannot overstate Tolkien's influence on modern storytelling, particularly fiction and particularly the fantasy sci-fi genre, right? I don't think there's anybody who would try to make the argument that his he has little to no influence over it, right? I think that would be a disingenuous argument for anyone to try to make. So I mean, as somebody who's involved currently in working on a book, that is one of the things that it does come up from time to time is, not so much focus. Okay, you have to have an idea of what the story is going to be about and where it's going, but you can't just focus on the end and getting to the end, right? The story is the journey of getting to the end. I know it sounds kind of cliche, but the whole life's a journey, not a destination, to borrow the line from Aerosmith. But that's the story, right? The story isn't getting to Mount Doom and throwing the ring in, right? The story is how you get to Mount Doom and eventually throw the ring in, right? It's the story of everything that Sam and Frodo have to go through in order to get to Mount Doom. It's everything that Legolas and Aragorn and Gimli and Boromir and Faramir and Elrond and Arwen and Eowyn and Galadriel and all those characters. It's everything they have to go through so that Frodo can get to the precipice and throw the ring in or not throw the ring and eventually have the ring end up being destroyed, right? So it's not you have to know that you're going to get there, right? You have to know where you're going, but you also have to focus on the little steps that get you closer to it every day. And I'm constantly doing that with the book that I'm working on. Is me and Mrs. J, sometimes, you have to worry about this little conversation that these characters are having right now and how they're going to get from this point A to point B and focus on that as opposed to, what happens at the end, right? And so I do think these are all lessons that Tolkien epitomizes and as somebody interested in writing, particularly in this genre and stuff like that, it behooves you almost to pay attention, from 1937 when The Hobbit comes out to 1954 when the quote unquote sequel comes out, Lord of the Rings. That's a hell of a long time, right? That's a hell of a long time. And there's a reason for it. And you see what was involved when you see the level of detail and depth and dimensionality contained in Tolkien's works. You understand why it took that long. And thank God he didn't try to rush the process. Thank God he didn't do what a lot of authors do and just, push out something real quick just to get the next check, right? Like he took the time to develop and world build in such a way that, you feel that under the right circumstances, you could actually be in a version of Middle Earth and it would be as familiar to you as our reality is, right? Because he has that level of depth and detail and dimensionality to it, and that takes time, and that is it comes from focusing on the little steps that get you to the end of the journey, not necessarily focusing on just getting to the end of the journey. Right, if you understand what I'm saying. So I just wanted to share that one with you because I know some of you guys are interested in writing and storytelling and world building, and I know I am, and it's in large part due to Tolkien and his works. And so I thought it was a nice article that says, hey, listen, there's stuff you can learn from this guy, in addition to the great stories and stuff like that, but the process and what he did and what was involved in creating Middle Earth and all its characters and stuff like that. As a writer, as somebody who's trying to be creative, you can look to him and you can see these lessons and see, how to persevere and get through those hard times when, that writer's block is just hitting you hard, but, you find a way, right? Life finds a way and writers find a way, right? So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys. I thought it was a really good story. It was a really good article, I should say, not story. A really good article about what's involved in writing and the process, and and how Tolkien can inspire you as not just a fan of sci-fi fantasy, but as a writer, and as somebody who wants to create and entertain others with your stories. I mean, I think looking to Tolkien as an inspiration and a guide, yeah, I think that you can do worse, right? So yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys. I just thought it was a really good article, and yeah, that's really it. So let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Are you guys interested in writing and creative and stuff like that? And if so, who are your inspirations? What inspires you to be creative? There's the question for the video. What inspires you folks to be creative? Let me know down in the comment section below. It'd be interesting to see your replies. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this one. Remember, if you like the video, like the video. If you want to share the video, by all means, do so. It helps the channel get seen by the YouTube algorithm. Helps get eyes on the videos. Helps us grow. Right. If you have not subscribed, I would hope that you would consider subscribing to the channel and joining the army of beautiful badasses. We're a fun bunch, we're a creative bunch, and we are committed to holding the line when it comes to science fiction and fantasy fandom, and making sure that the professor and his good works are respected and not trashed in the name of modernity. Um, so yeah, and if you are a returning subscriber, as always, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. You are awesome and you rock. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this one. Remember to be good, be awesome, be safe, but more importantly, stay more dorkish. Until next time, peace.